We have had more chocolate today than we should, and now we can get up. This episode of the show votes for Joel Jackson as the next Alaskan Bear Ambassador. We discuss the rise and fall of consumer products, starting with Microsoft Groove, how social media can beat up the news, and whether bricks and mortar businesses are the future. We also discover a new search engine that makes the world a better place. The Dane and the Pain, feeding the poor with mental sugar since 1974.
You are listening to another episode of The Day and the Pain, the show that cancels its consumer products and services before they are even launched. Good morning, Joel. Well, at least it's morning for me. Yeah, we haven't spoken for a couple of weeks, actually.
Yeah, our show is because no one listens to it. It's not truly a consumer product, so we haven't canceled it yet. But
No, this is true.
we'll
This is
we'll
just
get there. So
an outlet of audio for two middle-aged white dudes.
that's right. So I was going to say, Lars, there's been a few things that have happened this past week that I think are kind of cool. Probably the coolest one is, I mean, I talk about bears and stuff online sometimes, and there are bears around here all the time. But I actually had a physical run-in with a bear, not physical in the sense that I beat the bear up or anything like that. But I was out running the other day, and I ran up on a bear who was walking away from me on this trail. Well, I'm a mile and a half down the trail. Literally, I'm not going to outrun the bear. So, at that point, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do except stand up and talk to the bear and tell him to go away, which is what I did. Made myself big and talked to the bear. But then after the
And
bear,
when you say talk, you mean yell your lungs out.
yeah, make yourself big and loud. But the bear runs initially, looking back over its shoulder at me, and then after about 10 yards, it turns and looks and stops running. And I keep yelling, but you have to make a decision. So there were no cubs around, so I just thought, you know what, this is a male. He's a big fat male, and I'm just going to stand my ground. He starts to amble away from me a little bit. So this is probably about 20 meters, 25 meters away, and turns up into the woods. So then I'm stuck with, okay, I don't see this bear anymore, but I know he's still there. What do I do? Do I turn and go back the same way? Which, again, remember, you can't outrun a bear. And
No.
eventually I just decided I'm going to keep on going. So the whole way, I mean, I can imagine if somebody had a camera, was videotaping me, it might have been pretty funny. I'm talking to the bear as loud as I can as I'm walking down the trail because I didn't want to run, don't want to trigger him. And eventually, as I pass the area where he took off the trail, I can see him back in the woods again, probably 20 meters away. He is sitting there looking at me.
That's not very far away.
No, it's not. It's not. And but the reality is, at that point, if the bear wants to eat you or attack you, you're not going to outrun the bear. Um, so there's really no point in doing anything beyond what I did. I could have, I probably could have stayed in the same location and waited and then backed away from the area. But I sort of, knowing the topography, I kind of figured he would be back heading down to a stream and it'd be safe. But I had a great, other than that, lots of Alaskan experience. Went halibut fishing, saw sea lions and whales and all sorts of crap. Didn't catch much halibut. Actually went up and went trout fishing on Sunday with one of my kids. And I caught a trout. So it's been a very uh, Alaskan week for me.
Alaskan.
Yeah, no, it's
That's a
been
good way of
great.
putting it.
Yeah, the weather's been
Yeah.
nice for October. So what's up in your world? Oh,
Well,
wait, I forgot the biggest thing. I got my butt
yeah, I
kicked in
thought
the
let's
local.
say you missed one bit.
I did. I got my butt kicked in a local election. I ran for what would be down south in the states would be like a county government. We call them boroughs here. So I ran for a position on the borough assembly. There were six people running. I ended up in fourth place. I don't know in horse racing. It's not show. What do you call fourth place in horse racing? But anyways, I
I don't
didn't
know.
win. But it is local politics. It's one of those things where I kind of feel like, you know what, you gotta try. You gotta be involved. So, um, um, it's always a learning experience, and I definitely learned a little bit.
But and like you said, I came fourth out of six. Like that's in most modern schools, that would still award you a gold star or a medal or something. But I don't think you got anything, did you?
No, I mean I think, but I do. You know, as an example, I got to go meet for a few hours with high school seniors and answer questions about, and I that was very rewarding because I got a chance to talk to kids who are leaving the school that I did. Some are going in the military, making decisions about the future of their life, and talking about issues that are concerning to them, and that was really rewarding. I mean, to me, it was worth it just for that experience alone. Because how often do you get to talk to, 80 or 90, 16, 17-year olds about what they're going to do in the future and what their concerns are?
Were they throwing rotten fruit at you?
They were not. They had
Oh,
it
well,
set
that's
up
a
in
win.
groups, so they would, yeah, like a group of 8 or 10 of them would come over and sit and talk with you for about 20 minutes, and then they would move to one of the other candidates, and another group would come and sit with talk with you. So it was really,
Ah, right.
it was fun. It was fun trying to get the people who wouldn't talk to talk. You know, the kids that were shirking in the background, trying to avert eye
Yeah,
contact.
yeah, yeah.
So
But so what was your campaign slogan? Like, who was your main sponsor and contributor?
I don't want your money was my campaign slogan. So I specifically did not ask people for donations, although I was approached because I think in particular in local elections, it just doesn't make that big a difference.
No,
But
okay.
that's
So,
my
so
own
I'm just
bias.
curious. Why did you run? What made you? What was the urge that you had? What was the itch you had to scratch?
Well, so I think that strategically, I get frustrated, and not just in the community I live in, but in general, when you hear people speak in sort of defeatist tones about the future of things. And my firm belief is that if you act and talk like things are not going well or things are not going to get better, they're not. So, in leadership roles in a community, you need to have people who will advocate for the community, will talk about its growth, and will plan like the community is going to grow and be successful. Because if you don't do
Yeah.
that, you are dooming yourself to, sort of substandard existence. Um,
It's
and
that old Henry Ford quote, isn't it? Isn't it? You know, whether you think you can or can't, you're right.
Yeah, and that's actually oddly enough, I used one of his quotes in a little of another campaign event I did. But I firmly believe that you may end up failing or things may not go the way you want, but you have to plan for success at a municipal and city level, whether that be economic, social, schools, all those things. There are many examples in our community where people were mocked for building, say, a rec center back when there was a pulp mill closure. And at the time, it was viewed as an extravagant thing, but now the rec center is run over by use. People love it. It has a pool. It has all these things that a
Yeah,
community.
absolutely.
So, anyways, that was sort of my underscoring everything else was really trying to change the attitude about our future of our community. And yeah, anyway, sorry, I
No,
didn't
that's
win.
no, that's I find it
I
very
did.
interesting to be honest, because it's we don't really talk about that sort of you know I guess community stuff a lot. The only way that developers normally get involved with IT people is that they'll have a meetup or they'll have some sort of community group or something.
Yeah.
But the actual broader sense of community is something that a lot of people I'm sure are involved in, but there aren't a lot of people kind of discussing it. So I find that interesting that you chose to go one step further and actually kind of put your hand up to lead the community, which I think is interesting. Even though they kind of went screw you, Joel Jackson, we don't really want you.
I
So
I did, by the way. I mean, I shared the results on Twitter. I'm not ashamed of losing. I think what's losing is if we didn't have enough candidates running. if there weren't people that
Oh yeah.
cared about our communities. So
And no one counts how
it's
many times you fail.
well, I do.
Well,
I've got a little.
that was
I've
51
got a
for you.
yeah. I've got a little internal checklist. An
No, that was really
abacus.
cool. I think well done. Are you gonna go run again? I mean, not
Well,
from
so
the
these
bear,
are,
but for election.
yeah, there would be another election next year, but I'm not sure. A lot of it is timing. Right now I've got extra time, and so the
Yep.
timing was right, but um, in the future it may not be.
Yeah. No, fair enough. It's Yep. I haven't got anything nearly as exciting to report. Neither bears nor politicians. Um, but I did join the local Lions Club. I
Oh,
don't know if you're familiar with Lions or if our
I,
listeners are.
I know
Um,
we have them here, but I don't know if it's the same. I presume it's the same thing as what you have.
I would imagine it is. So Lions is it's worldwide. It's global. Um, it's a community organization that has clubs in lots and lots and lots of towns. They're often very small clubs. 10, 20, 30 members or something. And the whole idea is to help out your local community somehow. So it's the core of it is raise money somehow. In Australia, it's a lot of sausage sizzles, which means you sell barbecue food at various events and whatnot. And all of the proceeds go into the Lions kitty or the piggy bank, and then you distribute that money to whoever needs it, right? So people can apply for it. So the club here in Alexandria has in the recent time supported a guy that needed something for an operation he had. He had particular medical equipment he needed. Another lady needed just fuel money to take her daughter to a specialist far, far away. Like it can be anything that makes people's lives better. And my other half is the president of the local club, so she she didn't make me become a member, but she asked by twisting my arm. No, and so
No, she didn't
so I
ask
joined.
you. She told you.
Yeah, she just signed me up. So now we've got we help out wherever we can, which is kind of nice. It's nice giving something back once in a while. It's not a lot, it's a few hours a week if that. So that works out quite well. So that was my community contribution. Not I wasn't being voted on because then I would never get in. So yeah, and I very excitedly I went and got some more Jeep bits. Yeah.
I saw a picture of all your bricks out in your front yard. So I think all the BMWs. So I didn't see a Jeep in that picture. So I was wondering if you'd finally rid yourself of all of that.
No. It's the Jeep has had well, I do off roading in it and stuff, and I essentially hit a rock that was underwater, in a river because we were driving through a river, and I bent the steering so that when you were going straight, you felt like you were turning sharp right, which was a bit odd. And then there was a few other things, and a headlight broke, and yeah, then thing after another. I didn't register it again because we had too many cars registered, and now it needs a few bits. So I went and got it. We found a wrecker that had a full Jeep just come in, just like it, well, almost just like it, and we went and got a bunch of bits for it. So hopefully it'll be back on the road soon. Yeah.
Back on the road. I don't know if other people are wishing that or not, but
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's a sight to behold. I'm sure it'll bring enjoyment to many, many, many dozens of people.
so we had two kids stay with us the other week for a cross country race from another town from Prince of Wales Island. They're two high school boys, and they're so 16, 17 years old, and both, believe it or not, both have Jeep Wranglers. Wranglers. I don't know what the equivalent is in Australia. And
Same thing.
one, yeah, and he one said, yeah, and I've got the only one on Prince of Wales Island, which you have to understand. There's like 3,000 people on this island that's 80 miles long. So, and so they traded war stories about their Jeeps. Anyway, so yeah, that's my Jeep story. I'm
I
sticking to
like it. Yeah, see, they got class.
Yeah.
Well, they got something at least. Now, enough babbling. something interesting happened this week that actually got a bit of attention, well, mainly on social media, I think, and certainly in the Microsoft community, is that Microsoft decided to kill off the Groove Music Pass. So, for those of you that don't know it, Groove Music Pass is a streaming service. It used to be Xbox Music, and they changed it into Groove Music. It probably came from Zune, I would imagine. I can't remember actually, but it's been around for a while,
Oh
like
yeah.
15 years in one form or another. I think it was things 2003 or four. So a fair while, not quite 15. And they decided to go, sorry, we're going to cancel the streaming music service and we're going to essentially give everybody a chance to sign up with Spotify. So they say they're partnering with Spotify. I think they're saying we're going to recommend using Spotify. I'm not sure how much of a partnership that is. And there was, I think, what's the right way to describe the state of the social media and internet was there was bewilderment. There was some confusion of why Microsoft would do this, and then that confusion turned into lots and lots and lots of theories of what's going to get killed next. I even saw one really quite prominent report from a newspaper saying, "Ah, the Surface division is the next thing to go." So I went, what? That's maybe taking it a bit far.
Yeah, I
But
saw
it's yeah,
something.
it's an
They're going to shut it down in
interesting.
19. The Surface line will close in 19, which I to compare groove music with the Surface line, I think is kind of silly. But I mean, I think I think the reason is because there there hasn't been clear communication about end of life for some of these services, and then also obviously like Windows Phone and things like that. And so when you do that over time, the people that care about it, that are users, active users, are certainly going to be the ones that you hear from. And they never announced that I'm aware of how many people actually use Groove Music.
True.
And yeah, well, and I mean, I was one of them. I was a Groove Xbox Music user. I never used Zune, but so I don't go that far back. But um, music streaming, I've posted stuff on this before. Nobody makes money in music streaming. Nobody has.
No, well, that was going to be my point. No, exactly. And we've seen, I don't know if you remember Rdio, RDIO,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um, which was my favorite. Like the interface and everything was beautiful, and that was made by actually by the same people that invented Skype and Kazaa, which was a Danish Swedish kind of team with a bunch of Estonian, I think, or Latvian developer houses. And that worked beautifully. I used that for quite a while. And then I think Audio got bought out by, was it Pandora, which is rubbish. And now Pandora has been bought out by Spotify. Is that right? Is that how
I
it
don't.
went?
You know what? I don't know the sequence. I'd have to look that up again to find out for sure. I don't know. I I I just think it's interesting to see how sort of the people have characterized what's happening, and I think there's some validity to it though. And one of the things that I thought was pretty valid that came out of the discussion, some of the discussions was, well, what's the point of having Microsoft bricks and mortar stores if you don't have Windows Phone, if you don't have a product to sell? Now, and I know
Mm-hmm.
Groove Music wasn't sold in the stores, and my counterpoint to that is, the mixed reality headsets, the manufacturers of most Windows hardware would still could take a more prominent position in the stores than they have. But I don't know if that's even that is enough. Um, and I think I'd be curious what you think about that because they never really rolled out the stores um, completely as they had stated initially. They kind of got to a point, I think, 2 years ago and then stopped. And I might be off on my timing there. So,
Yeah. Well, this is true. I mean, there's still only one Microsoft store in Australia, which is in Sydney. And I think what keeps these stores going, to be honest, is there's two things: the Xbox or gaming, and it's the Surface lineup. Like those are the two main products that Microsoft can put in stores that aren't an Office 365 subscription or Azure Cloud Computing or whatever it might be. So I'm wondering if I don't think they'll kill the Surface division because it's actually making them money and it keeps going up in revenue as far as I'm aware. I can understand they killed off Groove. To be honest, I'm not terribly surprised. It's a loss business. I just looked up Spotify and they last year, so 2016, they had a revenue of $3 billion, right? $2.9 billion, which is a lot of money. They still lost, like the actual, profit loss was about $332 million.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's a lot of money to keep throwing into this service, right? There's Apple Music as well, which obviously Apple has a lot more cash to keep that going and push it. And I think it's a big part of the whole iOS platform strategy is to have this music service. I think they probably won't kill it. But I don't think with the Windows Phone gone, the Groove Music Pass just didn't make sense. The Groove Player, the actual app, is still going to be there. You can still play your music on it. You can still listen to all your downloaded music, all that stuff. But the streaming service is going to go its way.
yeah. I think that's a really good.
I'm not
That's
surprised.
that's a really good point because I'd seen sort of people just generalizing about what's happening, but yeah, it's the streaming service that will no longer be available.
Yeah, exactly. So,
But I think it also sort of the bigger question about all of this is, they like to describe these services as sort of the consumer facing is the term that people use, consumer facing products or that Microsoft has, and that there's a dearth of consumer facing products, and this is another example of one that's going away that some folks felt wasn't supported. There's all the normal reasons that you might expect, and my counter to that is that, if you look at the stock price of Microsoft and other metrics, you'll see that, the company seems to be at least outwardly healthy, and and really everything they do at some level is consumer facing, and it's pretty frustrating at times because I see a lot of the sort of the main folks that write about Microsoft as just still sort of narrowly viewing what mobile is. Yeah, and I see Microsoft sort of actively trying to sort of communicate how they view mobile and maybe not doing as good a job as they can. And maybe that's just my own misinterpretation.
um, I don't know if being a publicly traded company, if you have stuff that makes a loss, that is a negative, and it might be that there's a love product. It might be that it's something that's been around for 15, 20 years. But if it makes a loss, it's likely to get cut, right? And that's just the nature of business. You can't keep pouring money into something that doesn't have a purpose anymore just because there's an emotional attachment to it. So I think they will continue to have the brick and mortar businesses because it's part of the brand. People see the Microsoft brand everywhere. And I think there'll be more hardware devices coming. But the whole mixed reality movement, or whatever you want to call it, is like there was a big event that was 3 days ago, where they went into more detail around the mixed reality headsets, which are now available from the 17th, I think, or something.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
buy
pretty
them,
soon.
right?
Yep.
And you buy them in the stores or online. But you can go and try them in the stores, and there's a real push for the whole augmented virtual mixed reality space that I think Microsoft is doing the right thing and being kind of spearheading. I don't think that we will see Apple's. Let me just try and rephrase that. Apple's approach to this is to have the iPhone use ARKit, which makes perfect sense because it seems to work beautifully. I don't think you're going to see them come up with new headsets. You won't see macOS running on a new virtual reality device. Whereas Microsoft is saying, well, we're going to push Windows 10 to everything, and then hopefully developers will use Azure for back-end computing. And we'll make money that way, as well as selling headsets, obviously. I don't think HoloLens as cool as it is, it's not the consumer device that everybody thought it should be. I don't think that was ever the idea. I think the idea was these new headsets that are much cheaper, $300-400, and I think these are going to be pushed through the stores as well. So you will go to the store and try it out, and that's where you will be. You'll get the experience that is the full experience of the mixed reality platform, and that's where you make a decision on whether to get one or not. Which means you're going to continue to use Windows 10. And I think that's probably more of a strategy than having some streaming music that you could get and people are getting from elsewhere, especially Spotify.
So
Anyway,
I
that's
mean,
my
so
2 cents.
then you can't. I mean, so my so just to be the devil's advocate, it's hard for me to imagine them pushing through enough of these devices to justify the expense of having these bricks and mortar stores, and for just say the Surface and Xbox. And to be honest, I was on a stream before this with a mixer, which was formerly Beam, and it was a gaming stream, a fairly popular one with Windows Central. There's several hundred people on there watching the stream, and the discussion was about ordering the Xbox One X, not to pump up someone else's show, but the point being is that the majority of people talking about ordering the device, they ordered it online through Amazon. Matter of fact, I didn't hear
Mm-hmm.
anybody
Mm-hmm.
say, "I'm going to go to the store day one and pick one up." Now, I understand there's still going to be people doing that, but I'm just not sure. Having been in, I think, 5 of their bricks and mortar stores, that even when they had Windows Phone, were fairly stark as far as product. I don't want to say that, and it could have just been the way they were designed, that there's going to be enough there to justify that. And I could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And maybe there is a whole pile of stuff coming down, and they have a big plan for a push for these devices before the holidays. Um, I don't know. I just think it's pretty interesting to see these services sort of slowly going away. Uh, and I guess they're just kind of like Google, which is mothballs a Surface a month. It seems like, um, into the big
Oh
pile
yeah,
of other.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
So
thing. You can't be a big company and pushing innovation and pushing new products unless you're prepared to take the losses as well, right? That's just how it is. And I think Google, especially as you said, is a prime example. There are so many Google services that come and go, and they're fine with that. They just test it out. That didn't work, or that's too early, or we need to fix that, or whatever, and then they go back to the drawing board.
yeah, so this one of the other things that I saw in amongst the conversations online this morning was this whole notion about beating up on Microsoft for, why are they even trying in mobile, as if Groove was purely a mobile service. And it frustrates me to no end when I hear folks sort of use an application on a mobile phone is their definition of mobile. And maybe that is what the end consumer thinks of mobile. But what the end consumer doesn't see is the Xamarin developer using Azure to host their app, or maybe not, maybe just using Xamarin to develop the app, and that app working on their Android phone.
With
So
an Azure
they,
backend and an
yeah,
AWS authentication,
yes,
or like all the
yeah,
bits that make it work.
yeah, and then the $7 licensing fee going to Microsoft.
Yep,
So is
exactly.
that, yeah? So is that mobile? Well, if I'm in business and those are services I'm getting paid for, and I'm on, a 30 or 40% of those applications on Android are using one of those services, if not more, well, hell yes, they are. It's just not
Mm.
mobile in the way that most people think. And I would argue that going forward, this is the point I was trying to make, which it's really hard to do in 142 characters, but that the improvement, right, mobile as it is right now is at a wall that you can't get past because the barriers for an end user and for performance improvement are set by sort of by the software, by iOS, by Android, and by the hardware. And what I believe Microsoft is doing is recognizing that any improvement in the future is going to come on the back end, it's going to come in the software, and if you get that right, the hardware becomes more opaque and eventually transparent, and you really are interfacing with the software. And I think that's where they're trying to go. Um,
Mm.
and so, and that's very sort of high-minded sounding, but really, that's what they're trying to do. And maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're right. I think you're right, and it's what always gets me is that no one ever thinks like so tech people do, but consumers they consider Amazon to be a goods place, right? You go there and you buy your book or you buy your thing that gets sent to you. When in fact, what Amazon is a massive house of computing, and people buy computing services from Amazon called Amazon Web Services or AWS. And I'm sure every listener on the show are familiar with AWS because it's a common thing within the tech industry. But consumers don't know about it, and there's so much money in hosting the back end of everything, of being able to create an Oracle database in no time at all on AWS and host your Oracle data there, or spin up a SQL server on Azure and plug your data, so your website into that database. Like it's all this stuff that we used to spend hours and hours and hours doing as developers is now available to us with a few sliders and buttons and checkboxes on these services, and that's where they make a lot of money, or they're going to at least. There's still a significant amount of money now, but it's only going to grow. So I think that's important that the bricks and mortar is part of the brand more than anything, especially for places like Apple. The shops is where you go in and you get amazed and you look at all the prettiness. Whereas for Microsoft, less so. And for Amazon, they're going to start selling groceries. They're going to have actual supermarkets, right? So it's different for all the companies how they use the brick and mortar, but it's certainly not what makes them the most money, I don't think.
So, what got me thinking about this is, so, when you go buy, so right now I'm talking on a headset. I'm sure you probably have earbuds or some sort of headset. And when
Mm-hmm.
you listen to music or something on your headset, the job of the headset is to remove everything but the music. So, right, the sound. So, the best headset in the world delivers you just the sound. Now, I want the listeners to think about mobile and to think about what you do in your daily life. And the problem is in mobile right now, when you use a service, that's not what you get. What you get is a lot of noise and a lot of superfluous sort of stuff interfering. And that sort of
Mm-hmm.
that intrusion, to me, that is where the opportunity in mobile is removing all of that and getting just the sound that you want to hear to the user, and whether that's the hardware or the software or the combination thereof. And so maybe that's probably a better way of explaining what I'm talking about as far as the opportunity, the next big opportunity in mobile. So, sorry.
Mm. Well, it's all
Does that make
interesting, and we don't obviously don't know where it's going, but we can speculate, and I think that's
I think that's where it's going.
yeah.
Matter of fact, I'd be willing, I would bet that that's where it's going. And I think that if you're one of the big three or four or whatever, if you're in mobile, if you're not thinking about that, I think you're going backwards, because I think that right now mobile is
Yeah,
at a standstill, if you will.
and I think they are thinking about it. So
Sure, I don't have any insider information, but well,
no,
maybe I do, but
man, he just
Sorry.
Politician's answer. Um,
Yes, got to
yeah.
hedge myself, right?
The yeah, interesting discussion. I mean, it's interesting to see where that's going.
Yeah, and
I've
I'll miss Groove.
you
I love
found so
Groove.
just to yeah, well, I've never really used it. I used it in a presentation recently because that's one of the apps they were using for the new Fluent design for Microsoft. We'll see if that continues or not.
Yeah.
Um, you found a really interesting thing that I didn't even know existed, and it's a browser. So not a lot of that. It's a search engine that you can put in your browser. It's a new search engine. I don't even know if it's new, but it's new to me, called Ecosia or Ecosia. I'm not sure which one. ECOSIA. I think it's Ecosia, just based on their mission statement. And the idea of this search engine is that they sell ads, like any other search engine sells ads, but I think they're a non-profit. They're certainly a charity of some sort, and 80% of their ad revenue they use to plant trees. And it's very cliche, this whole tree planting business, but apparently this is really working for them. So if you go to their website, there's a counter of how many trees they're planting, and obviously that's a JavaScript counter that just spins up a number. But they must be based on something, and it's currently about 14.5 million trees that they planted. They have 500,000 um, yeah, downloads or plugins for Chrome that are users of that plugin. Um, and
I
and
think
they say they have 5.5 million active users. Like, it's not a small search engine.
yeah, a gentleman I follow, Shane on Twitter, who's active in some of these areas. I saw him share this, and so I want to make sure I mentioned him. But um, I thought it was kind of interesting. It's also because I'm a Microsoft guy, powered by Bing, which is neither here nor there. Um, but um, it's interesting the number of businesses that sort of operate on this premise. That is to say, use our service and help the environment or help this cause. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first one I'd seen that operated off search, and it's been around since 2009, which implies
Oh wow.
some financial stability and some that it's they're paying their bills anyways, unless they're funded by somebody with real deep pockets. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the notion of helping the planet by doing search is probably not a bad thing. Um, and I'd never heard about it. They actually have an
No, me
application for
neither.
both Android and iOS. I don't use Chrome, but I know that some folks don't mind getting themselves dirty, so they do.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, and I just searched for the Day in the Pain, and we are the first result that's a non-ad. So that gets my
Really?
tick. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was mad
Um,
because not to change subjects, but I went to Spotify earlier because I was messing with it to see if see what it was about. I'd had an account before and searched their podcast to see if we were on there, and of course, we're not. But whatever.
we will be soon.
Yes,
I'll
definitely.
fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and another. There's little details that I like when they build products like this. There's a tree counter, right? And it doesn't count number of trees. It actually counts number of searches you've done. And it says on average you need around 45 searches to plant a tree, because I don't know how much a tree costs to plant. I would have thought about $1 or so. And you can then kind of gamify it, and you can say, oh, I just need to search for a few more things, and then I've planted a tree, right? So it works well in that way. And I'm sure there are other parts to it if you go deeper into it that allows you to support more things. That's a really neat thing. Go check it out. Ecosia.org is the official website, and that's you can search from there as well. Or you can have it as a browser plugin. You can have it as default search engine in whatever browser you're using, and they just seem to be doing a really good thing. I wish there was more of these kind of things.
Okay, so I went out on the edge here, and I just set because you can actually set it as your default in Edge, or on edge.
You can or you can't?
You can. Let me just see if it's.
Okay.
And yeah, and that works. Seems like it works pretty well. Nothing's crashed on me yet.
Yeah.
But give me a few minutes. Anyways, I'm going to try it out and see if I find anything egregious or if I really like it. And maybe help plant a few trees over the next week. And maybe we can give an update if we remember in a future show.
We probably won't.
If we remember.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that we were kind of ranging on that first subject, Lars, but it's sort of interesting to follow the mob, and see people's reactions to these changes. So.
Yeah, I do find it interesting, and social media is always, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it's always interesting to see kind of what people take from whatever decision big companies make, right?
Sure.
There's some obvious ones. Everybody was going to love the iPhone 10 except the haters. That's just a given. But these things like, a small music service that no one really uses gets quite a big response. Anyway, so I think by now we've probably gotten to the point of the joke of the week. Oh, you can hear my dog in the background. Woof woof. There's a woofing.
He's gotten bigger.
That's not the joke. He's gotten bigger. No, he's still. We weighed him. He's 44 kilos. He's a big German Shepherd. He's a sook though. He's hilarious.
What's that mean?
Anyway, it is time for the joke of the week.
It's the joke of the week, so come along with me. I cannot promise it will be funny, but it's the joke of the week.
So, do you know, Joel, how do astronomers organize a party?
How do astronomers organize a party? I do not know.
Mm-hmm. They plan it.
That really says a lot about how bad my state of mind is that I couldn't divine that.
It was too simple.
That was too
fantastic.
simple, and I actually was distracted by your dog because I forgot about your dog. That wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I also had a really rude one, but we're a clean show. We're a friendly show, so I went with this one.
Right. That's funny. Well, you're not traveling this week. I don't think I'm traveling. So let's. There's a couple other cool things I got out there that I wanted to talk about. We don't have enough time. Folks, check out our website. Check us out on Facebook. If you have any problems with the show, make sure you contact Lars directly, not me. I'm just kidding, of course.
Still useless.
Yes,
Don't do
and
that.
if you want to get a newsletter sent up on our website, and certainly if you want to offer support, we accept all currency denotes, except Lars bucks. Which if you want to see what a Lars buck is, go look at my Twitter feed and you'll see one.
They'll be worth a fortune one day.
They will be. They're growing faster than Bitcoin. Until next time, Lars.
All right, see you, mate. Bye. Thank you for listening in on another episode of The Dane and the Pain. We record across the Pacific, across hemispheres, and across time zones. You can find us on www.daneandthepain.com. Our Twitter handle is Dane_Pain, and we are The Dane and the Pain on YouTube and Facebook. We're also on your favorite podcast app, including iTunes, and please join our fan club by clicking the Register Now button on our website to know about upcoming shows and any free stuff we may have to share. See you next time on The Dane and the Pain.